Hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing.
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. Today I have 5 all-new coastal fall Dollar Tree DIYs for you. I got really creative in today's video and I really hope you enjoy these new ideas. For this DIY, we're going to use the smaller pumpkin stack from the Dollar Tree. Currently, this one is $1.50 at my Dollar Tree, and it's just the one that's all orange, but it doesn't really matter which color scheme you get on these because we're going to paint them anyway. I wanted to see if I could transform these into a pumpkin stack mermaid. It actually turned out so cute. So for the bottom pumpkin, the largest pumpkin, I'm going to make that be representing the mermaid tail. Now, it's not going to have like a fin or anything like that, but I wanted to have the mermaid scales and colors. So I'm using my hot glue and I just went all the way around. I made sure not to go too high with that because I didn't want it to interfere with the pumpkin above it. But basically, I just went with the little sections of the pumpkin and did loop-de-loops here. And now, for the next row, you start about halfway in the middle of each circle, and you just connect them to the next one about halfway. And I just continue that all the way around. So for the third row, I just use the lines for reference again and meet those up in the middle of the one above it. And I just keep doing that pattern all the way down. I tried to minimize as many hot glue strings as I could because you're going to be able to see that when this sets up and I start to paint it. I do have room here for a few more rows. I want to go all the way to the bottom with the mermaid scales. This is going to be a big piece of this mermaid pumpkin stack. So I'm going to actually clean that up a little bit. I wanted to really make sure I got all of the strings off of it. And I'm going to set that aside. That hot glue will set up. I'm going to paint everything with this heirloom white. It's like an ivory color of spray paint. And I'm going to use that for all of the pieces. I'm going to make the tail piece a different color, but I thought it would be easier if I started with that ivory color before I try to change the orange to something pretty and coastal. So first I flipped them over just to make sure to do the little bottom part there of it, because when I flip them over, that part's really not going to get a lot of spray paint. And I just went over them with a good coat of the spray paint. I like the way the spray paint looked because I got just a perfect glossy finish on these. And I'm going to need that for these two pieces. So I think spray paint was the best. I often struggle with using spray paint due to like high humidity in my area in Florida. It's sticky, it takes a while to dry, but for this, I thought it was important to use it, at least for these two parts. And then I'm going to use it to cover the bottom section too of the tail, but I'm also going to use acrylic paints on that too. So I just made sure to get everything coated with these. The top pumpkin is going to represent the mermaid head. The middle section is going to be like her chest. And then the bottom part here is going to be the mermaid tail. So I had set this aside. I actually put it in my refrigerator to let it harden faster while I was painting the other two. And I am just spray painting that as well. So you can see the great texture on there. It really gives you the look of a mermaid tail that I was going for. And I think I can pull this off. I did set these up on just like some recycling and stuff like that so that I could paint them a little bit better. But let's focus on one pumpkin at a time to decorate this. I'm going to start with the tail first. I already did that great little fish scale texture all over. Now we are going to paint it some fun coastal colors, something that I think would look really pretty for a mermaid. First, I'm going over with this color. I believe this is the teal color, Dollar General brand. And I do make sure to use a brush too to go underneath like that lip there on the top pumpkin. But otherwise, I want to sponge everything on. So I'm using one of those little sponge stencil daubers. You can get those at Dollar Tree, or I have actually been ordering them by the case on Amazon. I'll have to make sure I have those added to my Amazon shop, linked in the description, because I love them for crafting and I go through a lot of these. So I am just painting it all in. You can see I'm painting the scales. I'm painting the pumpkin, everything. I am going to go in here with another color and kind of make this two-toned and distressed even more, which I really love. And for a mermaid, you could really do like any kind of color scheme you wanted to do. I wanted to do something that would look great with my coastal decor. So I'm going to stick with like the turquoises and the blues for this one. But I just kind of took my time and went section by section all over the bottom pumpkin to make sure everything was that beautiful blue color. And I wanted to also make sure that I didn't have any orange peeking out anywhere, especially like around the scales. I think I did a pretty good job of getting good coverage on that. Now I let that dry and then I go back in. I'm just switching it up to a smaller little sponge stencil dauber. And I'm going in with this color. This one is Blue Cotton by Apple Barrel. And as you can see, it's more of a blue color. I thought this would be a fun contrast with the teal color. And I'm basically just dragging the paint over the actual texture of the fish scales that we put on the mermaid tail there. So I don't care if I get some on the actual pumpkin itself back there because I do want it to all be distressed with the two different colors together. So I'm just sponging it on and going with that. But I did want to make sure that all of the scales were that beautiful blue color. It provides a contrast against the teal, but since they're both blues, they really work together and it's not too much of a contrast. So I really like how they look together. And I did that all the way up on every single row. And I just went over it with a baby wipe to kind of blend it together if I got maybe a little bit too much paint on the teal and just to kind of distress everything. This is what it looks like at this point. I think it's so pretty. We will shine that up in a little bit because the spray paint that I used on the other two parts of the pumpkin here was a satin. So it does have a little bit of a shine, as you can see when I put the two together. I have that flat color from my paint, and so I do want the tail to be shiny too. To fix that, I am going in with some Mod Podge gloss and just spraying that on, and that will give me a glossy sheen here for the tail part of our pumpkin stack as well. Anything with really a glossy sealer I think would work. I just had some gloss Mod Podge, so I used that one. For the second pumpkin in the pumpkin stack, this is going to be like the chest area of the mermaid. So I'm going to use some seashells. I have some plastic seashells from the Dollar Tree and some twine, and we are going to make a little shell bikini top for our mermaid. I know a lot of you guys ask me where I get my little twine keeper there that I use for my Dollar Tree twine. That is a yarn keeper from Dollar Tree, so keep your eye out for that. It works fantastic for twine. I'm going to cut a piece of twine that's long enough to go all the way around the second pumpkin, and I'm just going to attach the bottom of the little shells. These are the plastic shells from the Dollar Tree, but you could always use real seashells. I thought these would be perfect because they're exactly the same size, and I can always paint them if I want to. I just glued those on, and then I'm going to need two more pieces here for the bikini top for our shells. So I just flip them over, and I'm going to glue that there, just coming out the corners of the top of the shell there on the back, and making them long enough to be able to tie those around the pumpkin as well. I had so much fun coming up with this fun mermaid pumpkin stack for you. I first start by gluing the little plastic shell on with some hot glue just around the edges, and I kind of skip a section there in the pumpkin and then glue the other one on like that. And it can be a little shell top for the mermaid. I take the bottom one and just wrap that all the way around, tying that off here on the back. That will help keep it on as well and add to the decor. For the top straps here of the little shell top, I'm going to tie those around too, but I kind of need to go ahead and attach the top pumpkin first, which is going to represent the mermaid's head. I then can tie this one on kind of like in the neck area, and I just tie that on where the two pumpkins come together. I am going to leave the pumpkin stem on there because I am going to give her a little shell crown, and so I think we will be able to disguise that. This is what she looks like so far. And of course, every mermaid needs some hair. You could use like grass skirts from the Dollar Tree. That would be cute too. I didn't have any, and so I am going to try rope. And this turned out so pretty. I just cut a piece that I thought would be the right length for her hair, kind of going down to the second pumpkin. And I'm just going to start here on the side of the stem, I hot glue the entire piece of rope on there. We can always separate this later. I'm going to make it look like she has, some beach waves in her little mermaid hair. I glue one on each side like that. I don't want anything blocking her face. I will tie her hair back a little bit, but I use that one piece as reference to cut all of my rope pieces down the same size. And then I am just going to glue all of these pieces on here. It really doesn't matter which one of the brown ropes you get from the Dollar Tree. Either one would work for this. And I am just gluing them all over. I glued like 5 and then I went back in here with 2 more. So a total of 7 so far. And then I'm also going to reinforce that by gluing it on the top to make sure everything stays put. I'm going to go ahead and unwind the rope into 3 layers. That is going to give like the curls here. You could leave it like that. I do end up separating it later to really make her look like she has some mermaid hair. But this is kind of like leaving it in the curlers phase where we can let it out later and it will look really pretty for our mermaid hair. But I just went all the way around and unwound all of those. I do want her to have like some long bangs too that we can tie back. And I want to make her like a crown of seashells. I think that will look really pretty for a mermaid. So I cut 2 more pieces here for the front and I just glue them here on the front of the pumpkin stem like that, kind of going off to the side. And then make sure those are glued on by gluing those on top as well. And I unwound these 3 pieces too. I thought about tying all 3 pieces back. I felt like it was a little bit too much hair that I was tying back though. So I think I'm going to go in here with only 2 pieces and tie 2 pieces back. And I think that will look really cute. So I just brought those 2 to the back of her hair. I'm going to leave those kind of coiled up like that. I'm not going to brush that out or anything. And I am just going to tie that off with some twine here to make it look like she has her hair tied back a little bit to keep it out of her eyes. Now for the crown, I thought we could make it out of seashells and starfish. I have a great starfish that I got on Temu actually, and I have some seashells I found at the beach. I also have like some of the tiny seashells that I get on Amazon, that big jug of them. I have those linked in my Amazon shop. That these are a great deal. They're just like the tiny seashells that Dollar Tree used to sell. I glued a couple of the larger shells there on the front, and then just using hot glue, I want to make it look like she just has a crown of shells up here. And the starfish itself is really going to cover up the pumpkin stem, but this is really going to add to the fun decor of it. So I just use a combination of seashells that I found at the beach and the seashells from this jar to completely cover the top of her hair with some seashells. And I try to make it look relatively even too. And then we'll go in and just add the starfish to the very top. It's having a hard time focusing on all those seashells, but they turned out so cute. I just glue on the starfish right here. This is a blue color that's very similar to like the blue cotton color that we used for the scales for the mermaid tail. I wanted to combine different colors of blue together on her. I think that will look really cute. And I think it just needs a few more seashells here on the back. And I just kind of keep adding to the little shell crown until it looks really pretty. So this is where we're at right now. Now we can go ahead and unwind her hair. If you then take the individual pieces of rope and unwind them, you're going to get all these different strands that really gives me the pretty mermaid hair. I think that looks really pretty. Originally, I did want to give her like a raffia hair, but I'm really glad I decided to go with rope because I really like the beach waves she has here. I think that looks really cute. I'm not going to comb it out or anything like I normally would because I don't want to interrupt the curl pattern in these. I think they look really pretty. So I just unwound each one of them by hand, and I think that really made a big difference for her hair. Isn't it so cute? If you find any of the pieces are a little longer than the one next to them, you can give her a little haircut, trim things up a little bit, but mine looked pretty good. Then I got this great fishnet. It's like a mini fishnet. I've been looking for these, and I got it on Temu. This is the blue version, and I'm going to cut out a piece that I can wrap around her waist, like where the pumpkins come together here at the bottom, kind of like almost like a little fishnet skirt here to go over the top part of her tail. So I just went ahead and cut it down a little bit skinnier. It doesn't need to be quite this big. I want to kind of drape it where it kind of looks like the fishnet is draped here on the front, but maybe skinnier over on the side like that, and then wrap that around. So I'm going to start right here by hot gluing this corner on, stretching the fishnet completely out there on the right side, and then having it be really skinny and scrunched up on the left side. And I just wrapped that around, also gluing that on the back and trimming off any excess. And I think she's looking so cute. The only thing I wanted to add was a little color to her little shell bikini top. And so I am going in with that blue cotton color and painting those carefully with a little sponge, trying to make sure I don't get any on the pumpkin below. I had thought about leaving them natural, but I really wanted them to have a little pop of color as well. And she's not going to have a face or anything like that. I wanted it just to be like a silhouette of a mermaid. I think she turned out so cool. What do you guys think about our mermaid pumpkin stack? I think she might be one of my favorite coastal fall DIYs I've ever made on my channel. I really love her and I can't wait to display this. I ran this idea by my son over the phone at college and he definitely approved. I think it turned out so cute. It's exactly what I was envisioning. For this DIY, I'm going to take a pumpkin from the Dollar Tree and a Dollar Tree sign, and I thought we can make a pumpkin sandcastle. I want to turn that little pumpkin into a sandcastle, complete with turrets and all. So what I did first was I just removed the stem from it. This is one of the pumpkins that has like the orange on there already. It's not one of the plain foam ones, so it's a little bit prettier to start with. And we are going to make little turrets here. So I took a plastic cutting mat. This is just from the kitchen section at the Dollar Tree. And I traced out like a rectangle and like the decorative top that you usually see on those on a castle. And I'm going to cut 4 of those out to kind of give this the castle shape. You could also use like a plastic cup and cut the shape in the top of it if you had something tiny enough and flexible enough. I went ahead and made a slight overlap on those so that I could put that together. It only has 3 of the pieces on there, but I think that will work. But I'm going to need a total of 4 of these. So I just made sure my strip of the plastic cutting mat was all about the same width. And then I just used the first one as reference to be able to cut these out. And I don't have a template or anything for this. It was really easy to do. You can see I just have the little square sections sticking out at the top to make this look decorative. You could really do this on any size pumpkin. I chose this one because it's a little flatter. I think it's going to have more of the shape of a house than some of the taller pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. And so I just cut out 4 of these. I used the flexible cutting mat because I thought that would be something durable. I can cover it with paint and sand. And I first went over it with some paint. This is the Beachcomber's Beige, I believe it's called, and it has the color of sand. So I wanted everything to be the color of sand before I add sand to it, just because I don't want any of like the pumpkin showing through or anything like that. So I painted everything with that color, including the pumpkin. I kind of wish that I hadn't painted the turrets first because it did make them a little bit harder to put together to glue when I pull them around, and I wanted like a little tab to be able to glue them together. The paint didn't want to stick with the hot glue as well as I think it would have worked if I would have just left those and painted them later. So keep that in mind if you're going to paint yours. But I just painted the pumpkin that color, and I flipped these over and painted these as well. I did use a black Sharpie on these to kind of trace those out. So I was trying to mask that a little bit too there with the paint. But I painted everything that Beachcomber beige, and then I am also going to paint the top of the pumpkin too now that it is dry. This color actually worked pretty well to hide that bright orange color. And again, we are going to cover this with sand because I really wanted to look authentic like a sandcastle. But again, I didn't want any of that orange to shine through for sure. So this color is perfect. This is an apple barrel shade, and I think it is great for coastal crafting because it's just the perfect color of sand, but it also works really good on like faux driftwood projects. Now that I have everything painted and dried, I can go in and start cutting out little holes here in the top of the pumpkin to attach the turrets. I don't want them to be too large, so I need to kind of see how big I need. And I cut them with a razor blade, and then I went in there with just like a screwdriver to kind of hollow that out a little bit, creating a little opening for it. And then I go straight across to the other side, so it'll be kind of symmetrical. I want one in all four corners of my sandcastle, even though a pumpkin doesn't really have corners. We're going to give it four corners here. And so I just cut them all out the same way with a razor blade, and then just going in there with a screwdriver to kind of empty that out a little bit. I don't want it to be super deep in here, but I do want it to be where I can put those down in there so the turret's not just sitting on the top of the pumpkin. So now it's time to put these together. I did like kind of design them so there would be a little flap here to overlap to be able to fold those and hot glue those into a circular little fashion here. And I glued that and tried that out. I think it's a little too tall, so I am going to trim them down a tiny bit so they don't stick up too high for our sandcastle. I just added that to the pumpkin and hot glued that in place. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other ones, but first I'm going to go ahead and make them all a little bit shorter like I shortened the first one. And again, I just hot glued them, and I really wish that I hadn't painted them first because I did have a little bit of trouble getting those to stay put, but I'm going to hot glue them all in place. I tried to keep the little tops kind of symmetrical there, so when you're looking at them, they all have kind of the same pattern, and I did that with all four of them. And you can get really creative with your sandcastle. You can give it as many fun details as you want. I really wanted the pumpkin part of it to just be sand, and that is going to give us the fall influence because it's shaped like a pumpkin. But I want the rest of this DIY to be really coastal. So I cut them all down, glued them together. I do have a little bit of gap here where I cut the holes are not perfect for the turret. So I just went around with some spackle from the Dollar Tree and filled up any problematic areas so that when I go to add sand to this, everything kind of has a solid surface and we're not going to have just like sand like stuck inside the pumpkin there. So that was pretty easy just to touch that part up, and any areas of imperfection there on the top as well. I'm not going to bother going back and painting it again. The color is still pretty good. I just wanted a little bit more solid texture and everything to be closed in a little bit. Now it's time for the sand. School glue works perfect for this, and you can get this back to school sales for like a quarter. I love crafting with sand with school glue. I just started here on the top and I poured a layer of school glue all over. I'm just sponging that on. You could also use a paintbrush to kind of spread that out. And I also want to go ahead and put glue on the sides as well, because once you start sprinkling the sand on here, it's going to kind of go everywhere. So I went ahead and added glue here everywhere where I'm going to want some sand, including I'm also going to glue sand down inside the turrets as well. Then I just go over it with the Dollar Tree sand. I prefer the tan, but the white would work as well if that's all you can find. And I sprinkled that on there. I put a paintbrush in there just to give me kind of a little skewer there where the pumpkin stem is going to go, so I could get a hold of this, so I could actually turn it on its side like this and sprinkle some of that sand all over. I have done sand pumpkins before, but I've never made one into a sandcastle, so I thought this was really fun. I also went ahead and did the bottom because you might be able to see those at least from the sides. And so I just sprinkle more sand all over, really trying to get even coat all over. I don't want any areas where you don't see any sand. So then once I get it on there, I just went around with a little bit more school glue and just added sand to anywhere where I thought there might be like a little bit of a bald patch. On the turrets as well, I want those to be covered with sand. And so I kind of just work my way around it one section at a time. I do want sand to be inside the turrets too, so I added school glue into each one and added sand to each one of those. And this is how it turned out. I'm going to kind of dump off any excess sand on this. I want everything to be glued down to this if possible. And then this is going to be the base. You could really use anything. I like this because it doesn't have like an edge on it, this little board sign from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to fill in the hanger holes there with a little bit of spackle to give me a solid surface. But we're going to make that look like the beach as well. But first I wanted to glue my little sandcastle pumpkin on there. So I added some hot glue to the middle. and glued that down. I didn't put any sand on the very bottom of the pumpkin, so that should glue down well. And then I'm going around the entire wood circle with more school glue. I'm going to spread that out all over to do a beachy scene. At first, I was going to leave it just wood planks like that to kind of give you that boardwalk feel, but I thought it made more sense for a sandcastle to be in the sand. So I went ahead and glued sand all over the sign as well, trying to make sure that I have really good coverage there and everything is going to stay put. I did go over it with some of the Elmer's spray adhesive. I used to be able to find the spray glue at Dollar Tree, but I cannot find that there anymore. I actually got that at a pharmacy. It's pretty easy to find, but it also helps to glue when you can spray the glue on there. It helps keep everything in place, but you don't have to use that. Then for the pumpkin stem that came with it, it was like very gold and ornate. I want it to look more natural. I don't want this part to be sand, but I am going over it with the Beachcombers beige first. And then I can add some browns to this to give it kind of the wood look. I'm going to use some Antique Wax by Waverly combined with that Beachcombers beige here to distress this. I want this to look like a gnarly piece of driftwood, something that you would find on the beach that you could use for a pumpkin stem for your sandcastle. So I just went back and forth with those colors, kind of distressing this until it had that look that I was going for. Did want a little bit more of the dark brown, and a lot of it tried to blend together. So I just kind of went back and forth with the colors, distressing that, but I really wanted to mask that metallic gold that was on there before because that would not go with it at all. The next step is I'm going to frame this out with some rope. I had some scrap rope from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to hot glue that around all the sides. It's going to give another fun coastal touch. It's also really going to kind of make everything look a little bit cleaner here at the end, having everything framed out, and hopefully keep all of the sand in the project. And the brown rope from the Dollar Tree is really easy to blend together when you come to the end here. I just used hot glue and cut that down to size. I go over it with my lighter to try to clean it up and burn off any fuzzies from the rope. And then I want to decorate the beach around my sandcastle. The first thing I did was just add the pumpkin stem in here, trying to get that in the center of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to add seashells. I have a combination of seashells that I found from the beach. The little starfish you see there, I get those on Amazon, and the jar of tiny seashells, I get those on Amazon as well. I'm going to use one of the larger starfish in that package. I'm making sure to hot glue everything down to the board underneath of it. I don't want to just glue to the sand. And since I did a rather thin coat of sand, it was pretty easy to kind of push these down through the sand, hot gluing that to the base. And I want a combination of all different colors of seashells. So I was going through my stash that I've got from the beach recently, and I am just gluing those all the way around. I just kind of want to decorate it instead of having like a moat or something around my sandcastle, which I did consider. I'm just going to decorate it with seashells. Since it's relatively a small sandcastle, I'm not going to do any doors or anything like that. I think too much detail might happen if I did that. And so I am just going to leave the turrets on there. I think that's super sweet. So here are all the seashells attached and our little sandcastle pumpkin. I think it's really charming. It was a lot of fun to make. And it looks like something that we would try to create on the beach. Whenever we go to the beach on holidays, everybody like always makes seasonal things like pumpkins. We get snowmen in the winter. It's always really fun to see what everybody comes up with at their day on the beach. For this DIY, I'm going to make a lobster trap. Now, I'm going to use the little mini pallets from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use these bamboo sticks that I get on Amazon, but you could always use those popsicle sticks there from the Dollar Tree. They weren't long enough for what I wanted to make here for this lobster trap. I want to put two of these together. So I just hot glue the two pieces here. This is going to be the bottom of my lobster trap, and I'm going to use the little bamboo pieces for everything else. I bought a big package of these on Amazon a while ago, years ago actually, and I've been using them ever since. And I actually used the rest of them for this project, so I will have to replenish these. I'm going to first make the little doors here for the side of my lobster trap. So what I decided to do was to make each piece a little bit smaller so I could get maybe that arch shape that it should be for the side of a lobster trap. And then we're going to fill it up with pumpkins for fall. So I think that's a really fun idea. I started out here making each one just very slightly smaller than the next one. Then I realized I probably should make them a little bit more because it was taking a little too long to get to the very top here. So I started cutting them shorter, and I'll maybe remove some of those pieces if needed when I go to put this all together. I was just marking them with my pencil and using my miter scissors that I also got on Amazon to cut these down. They work really well. And I am just going to try to spread this out. I do want like that arch shape. I didn't really want to cut any like miter cuts on the wood. I wanted to try to keep this as easy as possible. So I just did them in different lengths. And then I'm going to need the piece to go from the top to the bottom to kind of attach everything together. So I just cut another one of these pieces down. And again, these are just bamboo. I think the link I used to order with these before is not available anymore, but I'm almost positive they have some available. I've seen them on Amazon a lot. Now, what I'm going to do is create a second one of these like side doors for the other side of our lobster trap. So just using the first one for reference to cut these down, I just kind of sketch them out with a pencil, how long they need to be, and then I can go in with that one piece and cut them all down to size, making sure to keep them in order because they definitely get smaller towards the top. And then I need another support piece the same size. So I'm just going to use the first one as reference, try to lay these out. It's not a perfect arch, but it's pretty close to it. I think it's going to work for this. And glued that on. Now I need to find a way to attach these to the side. I really want it to kind of sit on top. So I'm going to use another piece of bamboo just to make a little support piece to help glue that on. First, I'm just going to glue it to the top here on the edge. We're going to line up perfectly like that. Then I'm going to go in and glue that little braced piece on. It'll also be decorative, but it's really important to keep that on there to give that a little bit of stability. And I'm going to go on here the other side of our lobster trap and do the same thing. I have created a giant lobster trap on my channel before, which I made a lobster trap tier tray using some of the signs from the Dollar Tree that are arched and the Dollar Tree wood rulers. It turned out really fun. You'll have to check that out if you haven't seen that one. And then I'm going to cut the bamboo pieces down for the top. This is the part that the popsicle sticks were not long enough for, which is one reason why I wanted to use the bamboo, but I really like the look of it too. And I'm just gluing that on from end to end. So just cutting a few pieces out here for the top that are all going to be the same length. I'm going to have a little bit of gap in between the two pieces. And then the one here at the end, I kind of glue it on at an angle like that. I wanted that arched look as it went over the side. And so I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. I'm trying to get that intricate arch angle here. And so I'm going to just glue these pieces on. So I did a total of 5, 3 flat, 2 kind of at an angle like that. And then I'm going to actually attach the rest with twine. I really wanted that arch shape. And I thought if I just glue them directly to the side doors like that, that it wasn't going to give me the shape I wanted. So I just hot glued a piece of twine here to the top. And then I'm going to cut the pieces out here for the front and have them hang by the twine. And I got the look I was looking for. So I need to go ahead and glue twine here to the other side as well. Just glued it right on top of those. And then I'm going to kind of suspend these on here. So I just put a little hot glue on each side, put that underneath the twine like that. And it's going to give me that arch shape I was looking for. I don't want to go all the way down here in the front because I want you to be able to see all of the pumpkins and fun fall decor I add in there. So I'm only going to cover part of it. I'm going to let you see inside the little lobster trap. So I think that that is far enough for that one. I'm going to cut out a few more pieces here for the bottom. I do want to have a little bit of that look down there as well. I just cut off the excess twine though, and I'm going to glue these pieces directly to the sides. This one I kind of glued to the bottom as well. And I think just a couple of rows down here will be enough. It's going to give me like some walls to be able to keep everything inside, but it's also going to give me a little bit of structure as well. And then I do want like a little cross piece to go here in the middle. So I'm going to cut another piece of the bamboo and I'm going to kind of glue that on the inside of those two that I just attached and also attach it to the bottom one here that I have that's kind of swinging at this point and glue that like that. That way I have a little bit of opening. I can do some fun decorative stuff like with netting and stuff, at least on one side, because I still want you to be able to see in it. And then I'm going to go around here on the back and do the same thing. So I just cut the same support piece. I'm going to go ahead and add that now. And I glued that right across from the first one. And I felt like it needed a little bit more support. So I just cut another little piece here to brace that on the bottom. And now we can attach the pieces here. I went ahead and cut these down the same size as the other ones. And I still have that piece of twine. I'm going to glue them on just like I did on the other side, kind of suspending them like this so I can get that great arch feel that you see in a lobster trap. For vacation this summer, we went to Canada, but we also went to New England. So we got to see lots of lobster traps and enjoy some great seafood, especially in Bar Harbor. It was so beautiful up there. And I'm just going to continue that all the way down on this side because you don't need to be able to see in the back of the lobster trap. And I want it to look like a complete trap back here. So I just glued that all the way down here to the bottom. And we have got the shape of the lobster trap. I'm loving it so far. I did think I needed one more piece here at the bottom. And so I just glued that on to all of the braces we had there to finish that out. I didn't want a gap there in the back. And this is the shape of the lobster trap we have, with like the little doors and openings. Now, lobster traps a lot of times have netting on them. So I got some of this mini netting from Temu. You could really use like market bags, whatever you can find. I've even used like the rug liner from Dollar Tree, the soap holders from Dollar Tree. They have so many different things that you might be able to use for fishing net. You want something that's going to be a little bit more to the scale of your project if you're working like with a miniature item like this. And that netting that they sell at the Dollar Tree is way too big, usually for everything I try to craft. And so I just glued that on the inside there of our bamboo piece. And then I'm going to glue it here to the side of this door over here and glue the different pieces all on the inside, making it look like this area is covered with netting. I'm not going to do like the hole or anything on that for the trap. I just wanted a little bit of fish netting for that appearance. I think that's going to look really cute. And then I'm going to leave the other side open like that. So we have all the structure of this complete. I'm not going to stain it or anything. I'm just going to leave it that great bamboo color. I think that's going to be fine. It can look like a new lobster trap, I guess. I did find it did not want to hang real even since I used that netting and I pulled it pretty taut. So for the other side, I just continued the twine all the way down there to the bottom so that everything would hang level there on the front. But that is the structure of our lobster trap. I think it's so cute. I'm going to fill it up with a little bit of Spanish moss from Walmart here on the bottom. And I wanted to fill this up with pumpkins. Dollar General has a great pumpkin filler with these colors, the green, the ivory, the orange. I'm going to use more green and white, but I'm also going to use some of the orange as well. But I thought these would be really pretty for coastal colors. And I love the fact that they're loose like this, like a filler. You don't have to take anything off the bottom, like some of the Dollar Tree pumpkins. I had 1.5 packages. And again, I'm going to do more of the green and white, but definitely incorporating some of the orange in there as well, filling this up with pumpkins for fall. I think that looks really cute. The final touch is I want to add a lobster since it's a lobster trap, right? I went to the toy aisle at Dollar Tree and I found some sea creatures and they had a little orange lobster in there, which is perfect because it goes with the fall theme. So I'm going to put that right there at the opening there near the pumpkins. And we have a little lobster trap fall display full of pumpkins. I will try to find a link for some available bamboo if you want to recreate this with some bamboo from Amazon. I'll try to make sure to add that to my shop as well. Because I did know the last time I checked it that this actual bamboo was not available, but I definitely need some more too. So I'll have to do some shopping on Amazon for that for sure. For this DIY, I picked up a carvable pumpkin. Normally, I wouldn't use the carvable pumpkins because they are more expensive. I got this one at Lowe's for like $7, but I needed it to be carvable for this DIY because the ones from Dollar Tree don't let you carve them like, with the thin walls. So I'm going in with my heated craft knife. I got this tool on Amazon. I do have this linked in my Amazon shop. think you can find them at craft stores as well. And I am cutting right through that foam. Using the heated knife like this just made this go through it so easily to cut an opening in the front of this pumpkin. I didn't really care what color this was, but I think the white will come in handy when I go to paint this. And I want just a big opening here in the front so I can do a fun beach theme inside. A little beach scene is what I was thinking. And I just opened it up like that. But then I also went back in and tried to trim it up here and there to make the sides look kind of even. I did notice that the heat from my knife would burn it a little bit if I left it in one place too long. So I was trying to not do that. It was really hot. If you're going to work with a heated craft knife like this, just be very careful. Remember, it is extremely hot and sharp. So definitely be careful when you're crafting with one of these, but I love it. And if you take the little blade off the end, you can burn perfect holes in Dollar Tree plastic items, which I really enjoy. So I just went and carved this until I thought it looked exactly like what I wanted. Just some flat edges here. I'm going to paint the inside of it. I'm going to decorate the inside, but I'm also going to paint the outside as well. So I just wanted it to look as clean as possible. And I just kind of took one section at a time. I didn't want to cut off too much of it, but I definitely wanted it to look even if possible. And I think that looks pretty good. I think that's what I was going for, just a complete open look there to the front. Now, for some reason, they have like some numbers and letters on the inside of this. I didn't know if I could cover them up with a little bit of spackle. I tried to, but I think it's going to be fine because I'm going to decorate the inside of it as well and make it look like a little beach dune is what I was thinking. But I tried to mask those a little bit with the spackle. I was hoping that it would be completely smooth on the inside because I want to go in there and paint it. So I want it to look like the sky and the ocean in the distance. And so I just went in with some Cloudless by Apple Barrel and I just went over the inside of it. I don't necessarily need to do the bottom, but I want to do all of the other walls and also just that lip there of the pumpkin where I cut it open. I did that one blue as well. Just something really simple. I mean, I'm not going to do much more of a scene than that. And then I just wanted to make sure I didn't get any blue here on the white part of the pumpkin because I want this to look like wood. To get that look, I used just one of these chippy brushes from Amazon and some Beachcomber beige acrylic paint. And I'm just distressing it in one direction. It's going to give me that wood grain look. I was going for maybe a driftwood color on this. And since they're already white, I don't have to go back and distress it. I just made sure that I didn't get an even coat. I do want some of the white showing through. And I just went over the entire pumpkin with that. I just wanted something very subtle to look like wood. I also used that color to start painting the pumpkin stem. There's not much of a pumpkin stem on this pumpkin, but it's enough to make it work. And then I went in with brown. I tried like a burnt umber first. I really wasn't getting the color of brown that I wanted to with that though. So I'm going to go in with some Antique Wax by Waverly and it gave me a little bit more of the richness that I was looking for in the brown color. And I kind of just mix all those colors together to make the pumpkin stem look good. Now for the beach dune that we're going to put in there, I need some foam to be able to add items to. So I just took a little piece of the floral foam from Dollar Tree and I'm just going to kind of carve it down with one of those little Cricut scrapers from the Dollar Tree. I want a thinner piece like that, but I also want it to be almost angled. So it's like shorter in the front and taller in the back. That way I can add dune grass to this. I can add like a little beach fence to this, a little beach scene. I don't want you to be able to see the green foam. We are going to put sand in here, but I did go over it with that Beachcomber beige first by Apple Barrel and just sponge that on the foams because I want to make sure you don't see anything. And then I'm also going to use that same color here on the bottom. We will be adding sand to this, but anywhere where there's not sand, this can kind of replicate that sand look there with that Beachcomber beige shade. For the bottom of the pumpkin, and then I'm going to go in with some hot glue and glue the foam piece on here. The great thing about the carvable pumpkin is that I can use this from year to year. Here in Florida, pumpkins go bad so quickly if you try to decorate with them. So this is kind of more of a permanent pumpkin decoration. I really loved it. For the dune grass, I'm going to use some of this onion grass that I had left over from spring. I really like the tips because they're skinnier. It's going to give more of that dune grass feel. So I try to gather that together. I don't want it to be too long. And so I just cut that down to size. I want it to be able to fit inside that pumpkin. I would say this pumpkin's not real small, but it's also not very big. So I think that that will work. I do want it to be tall. And I just pushed that into the foam there towards the side. I think I definitely need more. So I just took more of that onion grass, started putting that together. And these don't have wires or anything, but that foam from the Dollar Tree is so soft that you can actually just kind of push the grass in there. And I want it to look like one big batch of the dune grass there over to the side. So I'm definitely going to need some more. Again, the skinnier parts there are my favorite. I tried to use those as much as I could when I was adding the dune grass to the side. And I just wanted to look like just a natural like beach scene that you would see at the beach with like a little fence as well. So I thought that the dune grass on one side, on the other side, we could do a little fence. For the fence, I'm using the wood stems from the Dollar Tree. I was trying to find some of the skinnier pieces. You could also use like a twig from your yard and cut it down to size, or even like, like wood dowels if you needed to. You could always stain those. And I'm just using the foam and I'm going to put the pieces in here, kind of going off to the side. I thought I could fit 5, but really 4 is enough. And then I want to tie them all together with twine. So I just pushed them into the foam and then I went in there and tied the twine on here to the one in the back. For the middle pieces, I'm just going to simply wrap that around. There's no need to actually tie those on there since I've already got those inside the pumpkin. And I did that all the way to the end, and then I'm going to tie off the final one as well to give that little beach fence look. You could also use wire for that, but I think the twine looks pretty good. And then we're going to glue on some sand. I'm using the school glue from the Dollar Tree. First, I'm going to spread it out here on the foam and pour in some of the tan sand from the Dollar Tree to give me that beachy look. I want to kind of disguise the edges of the foam so it's not real noticeable. So I'm also going to be gluing sand to the side of it, like kind of behind it as well. I want to decorate it to make it look like a beach as well. I don't want it to be so deep though with the sand inside that it falls out like that. So I had to be kind of careful where I was adding it and making sure I glued it down as much as I could. For the little starfish, I'm going to add one of these little starfish I got on Amazon, a little tiny one. I'm going to glue one right here to the front corner of the foam. And then I'm also going to glue like a seashell over on this corner. So I want that to kind of blend in with the sand and not be so obvious. I also have like some larger seashells that I found from the beach, some of the tiny seashells from Amazon. And I'm going to try to put these together, just trying to lay it out and see what looks good. And I'm just gluing those to the sand. I don't want too many seashells, but I do want a variety. I want them kind of spread out. I even add like a seashell behind the fence as well because I did have sand back there. I'm going to use this cute little conch over here to the side to make it look like maybe a large conch since it's kind of a miniature scene, but adding some seashells all around the edges of the foam. And here it is, our little beach dune inside of a pumpkin DIY. I got the pumpkin at Lowe's because it is carvable. Let me know if there's a better place to get those from. That was the best deal that I could find in my area. And I even got it delivered by DoorDash, so I can't beat that. And a fun little beach dune inside, really fun, kind of subtle, but definitely coastal. I love it. For this DIY, I picked this up for $2.99, I think, at Goodwill the other day. A big metal pumpkin, and I thought I could definitely do something with this thrift flip. I'm going to first start by covering it with rope. This is the thinner rope from the Dollar Tree, so it's going to be a little bit longer. And I thought this would be so much easier than trying to cover all of this with twine because it's such a big project. And I want to make this into a really fun pumpkin candle holder with a ton of coastal appeal. So I started right there at the top, hot gluing it on and just simply wrapping the rope around. I found that one package of the rope made it about 1.5 of these pieces. So it didn't require as much rope as I thought. I'm just simply wrapping it around. Every now and then, I would hot glue it to the metal just to keep it in place. But just most of the time on this was spent wrapping this, as you can see, because you have to bring, all of the rope through. And I just go all the way here to the bottom. I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to kind of glue it in place and then just pick another little piece of the pumpkin and start wrapping that as well. So if you find like a thrifted item like this is just a great starter piece. If it's just plain, it doesn't have like a candle holder in it already. It was just asking for decoration and it's a really strong metal piece. So for $2.99, I had to decorate this for sure. So that is how far one package of the rope lasted in wrapping this. And I'm going to do that for all of the sides of this pumpkin. I think there's 8 sides, and I believe I used 5 packages of Dollar Tree rope. Again, just kind of hot gluing it so it stays in place every now and then, but basically I'm just wrapping it. And then I just continue that same piece. If my package, ends in the middle of one of the pieces of pumpkin, it is really easy to just start another package of rope and blend that in because that rope does blend really well. So I'm just going to wrap the whole thing. And then I also have plans to make a really fun candle inside. Since there's rope, I don't want to use a real candle, but I've got a great idea for some items from the Dollar Tree that I can use to make this really beautiful. So I'm going to speed this way up and wrap the rest of this pumpkin with rope, and you can see the entire process. If you're not at your crafting station, this would definitely be a good project to do in front of the TV. I do have one of those little Alexa shows on my crafting station so I can watch YouTube videos or whatever on that. So you can put on a good podcast or something or a good crafting video like, this one and craft away. So I almost have it completed. This is the last one. I wrapped everything with the rope and it went on pretty cleanly. Sometimes the brown rope from the Dollar Tree can have a lot of strings. I am going to go ahead and still burn all the fuzzies off with a lighter just to clean everything up. But overall, I think it looked pretty good here using the Dollar Tree rope. And I actually just got a package of rope from Walmart. I was kind of curious to try that and compare it to the Dollar Tree rope to see which one I like better. But I just cleaned everything up. Now, the pumpkin stem on there is still exposed with the metal, and I do want to cover all of the parts with this with rope, so I'm going to cover this with that rope too. I just started right there at the base, hot gluing that on, and I'm just going to glue this all on. I've seen people do similar projects with, wrapping it with a thinner twine, the jute twine, and I thought that the rope worked really well for a large project like this, kind of a larger version of that twine wrapped pumpkin. So I have the pumpkin stem too. I think the shape is fine on that. I just went ahead and cleaned that up with my lighter as well. And now we can make this beautiful rope pumpkin into a candle holder. I'm going to use a wood slice from the Dollar Tree and a battery operated candle. I found this great one. I think it looks really nautical. I'm going to try to make it look a little bit more coastal. And I wanted a big wood slice for the base of this. So I'm using one of the wood slice signs from the Dollar Tree and carefully removing the hanger and the staples. They are so hard to get off there. I find the Cricut leader to be the best to get those little tiny staples out of there without damaging the bark on the wood slice. But I think it's going to be a perfect base for this candle. I think the candle is really pretty from the Dollar Tree. It looks like it has wax on the sides, and I think it does because when I tried to take this navy color, which looked really, nautical and make it look more coastal with some lighter blue paints, it was hard to cover it. It kind of cracks as you put the paint on there, but that's okay. I'm going to go over it with several coats of blue and distress it. I think this is the Cloudless by Apple Barrel, just a very light beachy blue color and just kind of dragging that over. I do want to leave the top part of the candle still white. That part kind of lights up a little bit when you light up the battery operated candle. But this one was really pretty. It was one of the prettiest battery operated candles I think I have found from the Dollar Tree. If you can't find like the wood slice, you want to recreate something like this, you could use the wood slice coasters for the bottom too, but I kind of like the oversized nature of the sign. That way you'll be able to see the little wood slice on the edges of this candle. So as you can see, I went over it with a couple of color coats of the cloudless, and then I'm going back in with a little ivory, just stressing it all over. I tried to wipe off that with a baby wipe without trying to take any of the paint off, but I did notice some of the navy definitely coming through. So I just went back in with my original color and distressed it. I just want it to look kind of coastal farmhouse and be in the same color scheme that I use for my coastal decor. So this is the wood sign we're going to use for the base. There's a little metal disc right here in the bottom of this pumpkin. I just add hot glue to that and put the wood slicer right inside to make a candle holder. And again, definitely only wanting to use like a faux candle on this because I want to light it. I'm going to go ahead and still use the twine that came with the candle, just putting it back on there, pushing it to where the colors kind of come together on there and testing this out. It seems to work great, and adding the candle to our candle holder. The last thing I'm going to add is one of the starfish from the Dollar Tree. They are white plastic. I'm going to paint mine ivory to make it look kind of bleached out. And really, that's all I think this needs. It's already got all of that rope detail on there, the blue and white candle, and the wood slice. So I just glued this to the top there, the pumpkin stem, as kind of a little statement piece at the top of this candle holder. It is a large candle holder. I really love it. I love all the rope on there. I think that turned out so well. So a fun thrift flip using this metal pumpkin that I found at the Goodwill store. Isn't that so pretty? This is what it looks like during the day. And then let me show you what it looks like lit up at night. The candle was nice and bright. Sometimes I struggle with finding a battery operated candle at the Dollar Tree that works well. So maybe with the price increase on the candles, they'll give us a little bit better quality candles like this one, because this one was really nice. I did actually just buy some battery operated candles from Walmart as well, because I know that they have some good ones too. But again, this is what it looks like during the day, and the candle even flickers at night. So I wanted to show you that effect as well. I really hope you enjoyed these new Coastal Fall Dollar Tree DIYs. I had such a great time coming up with these ideas and putting these together for you. Let me know which one was your favorite down in the comments below, or just come say hello. You can find me at Crafty Beach on YouTube on all social media. And this is my QR code if you would like to buy me a coffee.
For better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore. Seven years now on this boat, and we all know where we belong. Just wait. For our home to show on the horizon, soon we'll be there.
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of today's video. That helps my channel so much. And I also want to thank my YouTube members for supporting my channel. Thank you to Melinda Elizabeth, Jamie Job, Janae Farrington, Pamelia Wren, Donna Schreiner, I Am Mojo Jojo, Maren Christensen, Adrian Brolt, Debbie Middleton, Donna Tanner, Kim Rogers, Maria Cruz Pagan, Pal Puppy Life, Renee Albanese, Mindy Hupp, and Jenny. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you would like to become a Crafty Beach Bum member, all you have to do is hit the join button on your computer or your phone today. You're going to get early ad-free access to my content here on YouTube, a badge next to your name when you comment down below, and a shout out in every video. We would also love to see what you've been crafting. Share your DIYs with us in our private Facebook group linked in the description of today's video, as well as other links like my Facebook page. I'm really active on there as well. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and if you would like more fall crafting inspiration, be sure to check out one of these YouTube videos right here. Until next time, happy crafting for fall.